All right, just for the recorder, remember that this is the assignment that's due Sunday. How many paragraphs are due on Sunday? Somebody tell me.
3.
3. What does each paragraph cover?
One source.
One source. So one of your library sources in each paragraph. How many quotes are you aiming for in each paragraph?
3.
3. What's the absolute minimum?
2.
2. Okay. Do you want to aim for the minimum?
No.
No, no, thank you. We want to aim above the minimum. So we want to go for at least 3. All right. The handout that we are working with is the sample source paragraph handout, and we're going to go over that and talk about some of the common mistakes that people are making, and make sure that we are dealing with those. So we're going to take some notes. We're going to open that sample source paragraph, and we're going to take some notes, okay? So I put the source, these handouts were from week 7, but I brought them here into week 9 again, okay? So your works cited list handout is there, and I'll go over that in a few minutes, but I want to open this sample source paragraph and make sure that everybody is following this model, okay? All right, these are the steps of source use, and I want to make sure you understand that every time you use a source, you go through all of these steps. So I don't care if it's in my paper for this essay, or for a psych essay, or for an essay in your history class, or an essay in your biology class. Every single time you use a source in a paragraph, you walk through these steps, okay? Now, the steps that students are skipping or struggling with are source introduction and quote integration. And I want to give you 2 tools right now that I want you to write down. Okay, I'm actually going to open a new Word document, and I'm going to put a couple of notes in there. All right, I'm going to make this bigger, and I'm going to choose a large font. All right. For source introductions, I want you to use 2 sentences, at least. The first one, is going to be a sentence telling the reader who the author is. So somebody tell me what the second sentence is going to be.
The second sentence, it explains the quote.
Nope.
Telling what the article is about, or the book, or whatever the source is.
What the title is. Title of the article is. Okay. At least. Actually, I'm going to say 3 sentences at least. One sentence. All right. So if you're struggling with this, now if you got a 10 out of 10 on last week's assignment, don't worry about this. You're on it, just do that again, okay? But if you were struggling at all, if you got a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, these notes are for you. I'm going to try to make it a little more formulaic for those of you who really like the formulas, okay? So for source introductions, where does that step come? That comes after your topic sentence, right? So you start with the topic sentence, and then you do your source introductions. Your source introductions should be at least 3 sentences. 1 sentence telling the reader who the author is, a sentence saying what the title of the article is, and a sentence that says what the article is about in general. Keep these conversational. I've seen a couple of people just name the author in a fragment. Or they write this. Is that a sentence?
No.
No, it is not. It's not a sentence. So we're going to put a big X beside that. That is not what we're looking for. Okay? What we are looking for, and I don't know what's a positive thing. I don't have a check mark here, but, all right. So, yes is going to be, yes with an S, is going to be Daniel Davidson wrote an article for the Federalist about this topic. Is that a sentence? It is. That's what I'm talking about when I say a sentence. Okay? So we're going to do another no. Why is that a no? It gives the title. Why is that a no?
Because titles are supposed to be underlined, not quoted.
Let's go over that rule, okay? I'm going to put a note up here. You're going to write it down. Title formats. All right, so you're going to write this down. Title formats. When you are writing them in your works cited list or when you're writing them here in the essay, we want to treat them the same in both places. Periodical titles are underlined. So the Federalist is underlined, the Atlantic is underlined, the Washington Post is underlined, CNN Wire is underlined. The Harvard Gazette is underlined. Those are all underlined. The place that it came from is underlined. Article titles are in quotation marks. And whether they are periodical titles or article titles, we capitalize the first letter of each significant word. Because it's a proper noun, the whole thing. Okay. So, it's in the correct format for a title, but is it in a sentence?
No.
Okay. Is that now a sentence?
Yes.
It is now a sentence. Alan's with me. Everybody else is sleeping. All right. All right. Now we have a sentence. Does it have to be a fancy sentence? Lakeisha, does it need to be a fancy sentence or can it be a simple sentence like this one?
It could be a simple sentence.
Yes, ma'am, it can. All right. But I want to show you another no. Okay? Oops. In the article called Is that a sentence?
Yes.
Where's the verb? That's part of the title. The title I'm going to change the title to the word toast, which we know is not a verb. Is that a sentence?
No.
No. Why?
Because it doesn't have a subject.
Right. It's a prepositional phrase. It might as well say in my office. In my office. Is that a sentence?
No.
No. All right, so we can't do that. If we want to say, I'm going to put that back in the article, and I'm going to copy this because if you want to do that formulation, you can. There is a way to do it, but it goes like this. Again, I'm going to copy. You're going to write this down, or you're going to have to watch the video again and write it down. And we change this to a comma, and then we say, he says that we need all our monuments. Okay? So now we have a subject and a verb and a predicate. We have something more than just this half a sentence. So remember, commas connect and periods separate. And if the thought needs to go together, you need a comma and not a period. Both the period and the comma go inside those quotation marks. Okay? All right. Good. All right. So, and then for what the article is about in general, I think you can manage a sentence on that. Okay? But remember, we are not putting the name backwards in the body of our text. We're writing normal sentences that sound like a normal person talking about an article. Okay? If you read it out loud and it's not how you really talk, something's wrong with it. You should be able to read it out loud and have it make sense. Okay? That's what we're aiming for. Just because we're writing about sources doesn't mean all of a sudden we talk backwards or talk in fragments. Right? All right. The next thing I want to cover with you is quote integration, and I want to have you write these down. Quote, integration, phrases. Actually, quote integration. Okay, so what's the rule? Every quote needs to be part of a complete sentence. Okay? So, how do we achieve that? What tools do we use? Tylandria, what tools do we use for quote integration?
Is it the parentheses? I might be wrong. But is it like the little parentheses on the end? They might be totally wrong.
By parentheses, do you mean quotation marks or parentheses?
Yes, a quotation mark.
Okay, so we definitely do put our quotes in quotation marks. Put all quotes in quotation marks. All right? But what goes before the quotation marks? Let's get a no in there. Sometimes I'm seeing this. I'm going to make up a quote. This isn't a real quote. I left the house at dawn and never returned. I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's the quote. All right. So that's the quote. I'm even going to put a citation in there and say it came from paragraph 8. Okay? What's wrong with that?
You're not introducing what you're talking about?
I'm not using that quote integration phrase, right? So we need use a quote integration phrase before every quote. All right, so let's get a yes in there. How can I use a quote introduction phrase for this? What's the correction here?
Dr. Swanberg says.
Swanberg says, or said, I guess, because, you know. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this there. Don't forget, copy and paste is your friend. Okay. So we have this. I'm going to make that bold so that you can see that those are the quote integration phrases that we are talking about. Now, at the top of this next page, what we're going to do is make a list, because I don't want to hear says 300 times. Okay? We need some choices. Let's get some choices here. And I'm just going to go back and forth between a he and a she each time, but please remember you can use things like, all right, so you can use he or she, you can use the name, you can use the article, you could say, The editor, if you've got the editor of a magazine saying something, you could say, okay, so those are the ways that you can refer, or the author, the editor, the author. So you can refer to the person by he says or she says. You can refer to them by their last name, like Alan just did. You can say the article says. You can say the author or the editor says. Okay, so that mixes that up a little bit. Okay, and we'll put says there. Okay.
Does it have to be says? Can it be like claim? Or...
That is our next project. And for the rest of these, I'm just going to go back and forth between a he and a she, but you remember that you've got these other choices, okay? So let's start with he says, and always a comma. So I'm going to put a comma after every single one of these, and so are you, okay? It's he says, comma, quote. He says, comma, quote. She says, comma, quote. The article says, comma, quote. The author says, comma, quote. All right, so we've got says. Taylor, give me another one. You had a good one.
She claims.
Claims. Great. Another one. Let's hear from somebody else.
Can we use a statement?
She states. Yeah. Or, well, I'm supposed to do he here. He states. Don't want to be sexist. He states. What else?
He argues.
What was that, Portia?
He argues.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. She argues. What else?
He reflects.
He reflects. I like that. What else?
He suggests.
I like that. She suggests. What else?
Can we use like question, or are we only doing ones like she said something?
Well, if they're asking a question, you could say he asks, right? What else? I want to put one up here and ask you if it's correct. Is that one correct?
Yes.
When would it be correct?
If the person that you're quoting is quoting somebody else in their article.
In which case you have to do it this way. Okay? She quotes Barack Obama as saying blank, right? But you have to say who they're quoting. You can't just say he quotes because you're the one doing the quoting, right? They're doing the saying, you're doing the quoting most of the time. If they're quoting somebody else, then you have to not only say they quote them, but say who they're quoting. Okay, so I'm going to put that one in bold because it's weird. But I know it's a situation a lot of you have. A lot of you are doing a quote within a quote. And I'm going to show you, I made Obamacare happen. I don't know what he really said. But we'll do that. And why are there more, what's going, and what's going on here? Okay, so if you have an author who is quoting somebody else, you are not using an original source. So your citation needs to say it was quoted in the article that you read in paragraph 3, and it needs to say who's saying it. As I'm going to even put in Davidson quotes Barack Obama as saying, I made Obamacare happen. I'm going to get rid of the extra space here, but there's a single quote inside a double quote. This double quote indicates that you are quoting. The single quote indicates that Davidson is quoting. This is hard. If you don't like doing all of this, don't pick that quote. I love you. You can avoid it if you want to, but if you do it, this is how you do it. Okay, I'm going to back up here and ask for some other easy ones. Contends is a wonderful word. He asserts. We love our assertive men and women. What else? We've got a lot to choose from. She complains, he tells us, she informs us, he points, I'll move it up. He points out. Where am I going? He points out, comma, quote. So I want you to have this little bank of these phrases, and you can use other ones, right? Suggests, asks, tells us, informs us, points out, contends, asserts, argues. So let's branch out from says. Notice that these are all in the present tense. Does anybody know why they're all in the present tense, even if it was written in like 2018?
Because you're trying to make an argument or get your side or your point across.
I like that idea, and it's still true in your argument. The way I like to think of it is that the author is going to say it again every time you read the article. So they have kind of made themselves immortal, and they say it in the present tense every time you read the article. So we put it in the present tense, because now that they've written it, even if they wrote it 2 years ago, they're saying this every time somebody reads it. So, a little bit of immortality achieved for these guys and gals, and they get their present tense verbs forever. Isn't that exciting?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What's QTD?
Can you?
I missed that on that part.
All right.
I was trying to see how you incorporated paragraph 3, because I wasn't doing it right. I was writing out the whole thing, like paragraph 3 and just a lot.
All right, so yeah, in our citations, I'm just going to back up a little bit. Our citations should look like this throughout the whole essay. We don't need a name because you've given me the name in the paragraph already. Okay? All right. And you're only dealing with one source per paragraph. Now, you can make it harder on yourself and not do it that way, but it's much easier to manage the citations if you've told us who the author is, and then you can just have your citations look like this, paragraph 8. Okay? Here at the end, this is when you have when your author is quoting somebody else. And then you say, your author quotes, and I used Barack Obama because he is quoted in one of the articles that I provided. And a lot of people are using that. And in which case you need to explain that. Davidson quotes Barack Obama as saying, comma, quote. Double quote for what you are quoting. Single quote for what Davidson is quoting. Right? And then QTD means quoted in Davidson, paragraph 3.
Okay.
Or paragraph whatever number. I'll change that to just a number. Okay?
Okay.
Now, that's only if you have that situation. This is a weird situation. I'm going to even label this weird situation when one author quotes someone else. And then you follow that format. Okay? And remember, you might need to say, Johnson quotes the mayor of New Orleans saying, comma, quote, right? Make sure that this part that this part tells your reader what's going on. If it's complicated, you might do it in 2 sentences. Like Davidson quotes Barack Obama talking about the monuments, period. Obama says, comma, quote, and then put in the same citation. Okay? But if this part is getting grammatically weird, don't let it get weird. Separate it into 2 sentences so that you can explain what's going on, who's talking about whom, and make it clear to your reader who's talking, even if it takes an extra sentence. Okay, be patient with it. Make sure that it sounds like a normal person talking and that it's easy to read. Okay, and that your reader knows what's going on. So that's the patience, and it might take you 2 sentences to get that across instead of just 1, and that's okay. It doesn't all have to get done in this one particular way of doing it. We just need to make situations clear to the reader. Clarity is your number 1 job. All right, questions about your source paragraphs? All right, I'm going to pause the